The night I discovered my wife's betrayal split my life into before and after, but I refused to let her lies destroy everything I'd built. My name is Nelson Matthews, and I'm 34 years old. I run a heating and air business, working honest days with grease under my nails, returning each evening to what I thought was a stable home. My wife Quinn chose a Thursday night to tell me she didn't want to be tied down anymore. She preferred meeting new people, going out, feeling alive as she called it. The betrayal cut clean and deep, surgical, like the way she'd planned her exit. I didn't throw things or shout. Instead, I chose the path of paperwork and precision, the tools my Uncle Lionel taught me to respect. When Quinn tried claiming half of my $13 million inheritance, she never saw the consequences coming. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. I pulled into our driveway that Thursday evening, the familiar scent of casserole drifting through the kitchen window. My work boots left dusty prints on the welcome mat as I stepped inside, finding Quinn standing at the sink, twisting her wedding ring like it was suddenly too tight. The kitchen looked normal. Plates set, food steaming, but something in the air felt wrong. Maybe it was how Quinn wouldn't quite meet my eyes, or how her fingers kept worrying that gold band. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady but pitched slightly higher than usual. "Like adults?" I set my lunch cooler down on the counter, remembering the hotel receipts I'd found earlier that week. The ones labeled team off-site when I knew her marketing job didn't have any events scheduled. The cropped photos on her phone. The nameless contacts. "Just say it," I told her, pulling out a kitchen chair. The legs scraped against the linoleum, a sound that used to remind me of family dinners but now felt like nails on a chalkboard. Quinn took a deep breath. "I've been seeing other people." The words hung there between us, heavy as engine blocks. I kept my hands flat on the table, studying the grease still caught under my fingernails. "I don't want to be tied to just one person anymore," she continued, gaining momentum. "Being married, living like this, it feels like a cage. I need freedom. I want to go out, date who I want, feel alive again." "You mean you prefer strangers to stability?" I said, my voice coming out steadier than I felt. "Don't twist my words," she snapped. "This isn't about other people. It's about me needing more than—" She gestured around the kitchen. "Than this." I looked at our life together. The photos on the fridge, the calendar with shared appointments, the silly magnet collection we'd built over 7 years. "You just detonated a family because you're bored?" "I'm filing for divorce," Quinn declared, crossing her arms. "We can keep this civilized if you don't make it ugly." "Civilized?" I almost laughed. "You burned our house down and want me to thank you for the warmth." Her face hardened. "I'm leaving tonight. I've already packed a bag." She grabbed her purse from the counter, keys jingling. "Don't try to stop me." The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. Through the kitchen window, I watched her car back out of the driveway, taillights disappearing around the corner. I sat there for a long time, staring at the untouched casserole growing cold in its dish. The clock on the microwave blinked 8:43, then 9:12, then 9:45. When morning came, I made 3 calls before my first service appointment. The first was to Nadia Price, a divorce attorney known for handling cases like mine. The second was to my bank, freezing our joint accounts. The third was to my crew supervisor, letting him know I'd need some flexible hours in the coming weeks. Between jobs that day, I started a list in my work notebook. House deed, retirement accounts, business assets, shared debts. Each item neat and precise, just like Uncle Lionel taught me to keep my service records. My phone buzzed just as I was finishing up my last call of the day. A text from Quinn. "Papers will be filed by end of week. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I sat in Nadia Price's office the following Monday morning, watching her spread documents across her polished desk with practiced precision. She reminded me of my uncle, the way she checked every detail twice, explaining things in clear, measured terms. "Here's how the temporary orders typically work," she said, tapping a blue-tabbed folder. "You'll keep the house since you're the one making the payments, but you'll also maintain responsibility for joint debts. Quinn keeps her car and whatever belongings she's moved to her new place." Her pen traced down a checklist. "Any questions so far?" Just one, I said, adjusting in the leather chair. How do we keep this moving? I don't want it dragging out. Quinn's attorney is pushing for early mediation, Nadia replied, her expression carefully neutral. We can accommodate that, but we'll need complete financial disclosures first. She slid a stack of forms toward me. Start gathering these documents, bank statements, credit cards, retirement accounts, everything from the past 3 years. I nodded, remembering the filing system Uncle Lionel had insisted I maintain. I've got most of that organized already. Good. Nadia handed me a pen. Initial here, and sign at the bottom. This acknowledges receipt of the temporary orders and sets our mediation date. The pen felt heavy in my hand as I marked each spot. 7 years of marriage reduced to signature lines and witness blocks. 3 days later, I sat across from Quinn in the mediator's office. The room smelled of coffee and artificial pine, and Quinn wore the same smirk she'd had the night she left. I gave you the best years of my life, she said, leaning back in her chair. I deserve compensation for that time. My jaw tightened. You chose to walk away. You wanted freedom. Your words. Freedom means handling your own finances. Such a businessman, Quinn sneered, always reducing everything to numbers. What about the time I wasted settling for your routine, your predictable little life? You didn't waste time, I replied evenly. You abandoned responsibility. Big difference. Quinn stood abruptly, gathering her purse. We're done here. My attorney will be in touch. That smirk again as she walked out like she knew something I didn't. That evening, I sat on my garage workbench surrounded by the tools Uncle Lionel had given me when I started my business. The familiar smell of metal and oil helped me think clearly. I pulled out fresh folders, labeling each one meticulously. Bank records, property documents, business financials. Every paper in its place, every transaction documented. The garage clock read 11:43 when my phone rang. Trina Caldwell's name lit up the screen. Nelson, I'm sorry to call so late, she said, her voice heavy. I'm the executor of your Uncle Lionel's estate. Could you meet with me tomorrow? There are some matters we need to discuss regarding his will. I gripped the phone tighter, thinking of the last time I'd seen Uncle Lionel checking the furnace in his workshop. Of course. What time? 9 a.m. at my office? It's important. I'll be there, I promised, ending the call as my eyes drifted to the framed photo of Uncle Lionel and me at my business opening, his weathered hand on my shoulder, both of us smiling at the future we thought we understood. Trina's conference room had that familiar legal sterility, all mahogany and leather with morning sun casting long shadows across stacks of manila folders. She settled into her chair, hands folded over a thick blue binder labeled Matthews Estate. Nelson, she began, her voice gentle but direct. I want you to take a deep breath before I continue. She adjusted her glasses. Your Uncle Lionel left his entire estate to you. The preliminary valuation puts it at approximately $13 million. The air felt suddenly thin. I thought of Uncle Lionel's weathered hands showing me how to thread pipe, the smell of machine oil in his workshop where he'd taught me that precision matters more than speed. I cleared my throat. That's not possible. It's not just possible, it's done, Trina said, opening the binder. The estate includes the warehousing business, 4 commercial properties, and substantial liquid assets. Lionel was very specific about the structure. She slid several documents across the table. Everything passes through a trust in your name. My fingers traced the trust paperwork. What do I need to know about handling this? Smart question, Trina nodded approvingly. First rule, keep everything separate. No mixing with personal accounts, no combining with business funds. The trust needs its own accounts, its own paper trail. She tapped a yellow legal pad. I've outlined the basic requirements. Given your current situation, maintaining clear boundaries is crucial. The weight of those words settled heavily. Quinn. Of course you'd try to claim a piece of this. The separation date is already filed, I said. That matters, right? It helps, Trina confirmed, but you'll need to be meticulous. One wrong transfer, one mixed deposit, and things get complicated. She handed me a business card. This is David Jang, the trust's accountant. Call him tomorrow. He'll help set up the proper accounts. I left Trina's office with a briefcase full of documents and a head full of numbers. 13 million. The kind of money that changes everything, or destroys everything depending on who's reaching for it. That night my phone buzzed while I was reviewing the trust paperwork. Quinn's name lit up the screen. "I heard about Lionel," she said, her voice carrying that false sympathy she used when angling for something. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you," I replied flatly. "Such a shock about the inheritance," she continued. "Looks like we'll have more to divide after all." My grip tightened on the phone. "The inheritance is separate property, Quinn. You know that." She laughed, the sound sharp and hollow. "Courts don't always see it that way, Nelson, especially with amounts this size. Besides, I was there all those years you worked with Lionel. That counts for something." "No, it doesn't," I said. "But I'm sure you'll try to make it count anyway." "Don't be bitter," she chided. "It's just business, right? Isn't that what you always say?" The call ended and I stood in my driveway, phone still pressed to my ear, watching the sunset paint everything in shades of amber. The same colors that used to fill Uncle Lionel's workshop when we'd work late. Him teaching me that anything worth building was worth protecting. I walked into First National with a stack of trust documents and Uncle Lionel's death certificate tucked under my arm. The bank manager, Mrs. Santos, had cleared her morning schedule after Trina called ahead. Her office smelled like coffee and fresh paper. "We'll set this up exactly right," Mrs. Santos said, fingers moving efficiently across her keyboard. "Separate trust account, no connection to personal holdings." She glanced up at me. "Trina mentioned you wanted everything documented thoroughly." "Every detail," I confirmed. The morning sun caught the brass nameplate on her desk, reminding me of the way light used to gleam off Uncle Lionel's precision tools. He'd taught me early: measure twice, document everything. For the next hour, we worked through forms and signatures. Each document got scanned, each account number recorded. I sent everything to Trina via email before I left the parking lot. "Trust account established. Please confirm receipt and compliance with terms." Her response came quickly. "Perfect. Everything's properly segregated. Keep maintaining this level of documentation." 3 days later, I sat across from Quinn in the mediator's beige conference room. She'd dressed for battle in a sharp blazer, her wedding ring conspicuously absent. "Let's discuss the inheritance," she opened, leaning forward. $13 million is life-changing money. Money that came because of connections built during our marriage. "The inheritance is separate property," I said. "You know that." "I gave you my 20s, she shot back. "I wasted my best years tied down to you, playing house while you worked with your precious uncle. I won't walk away with nothing." The mediator shifted uncomfortably as I met Quinn's gaze. "You walked away because you wanted freedom," I said evenly. "Freedom doesn't come with a payout." Quinn's eyes narrowed to slits. "You self-righteous." She caught herself, straightened her blazer. "Fine. We'll let the judge decide what's fair." She grabbed her purse and stormed out, leaving the door vibrating in its frame. That evening I sat in Nadia Price's office, updating her on the failed mediation. She reviewed my bank documentation with approval. "The law is clear on inheritance," Nadia assured me, setting down her reading glasses. "As long as you maintain these boundaries, the trust stays protected." She tapped my folder of bank records. "But Quinn's reaction concerns me. When people feel entitled to money, they often escalate." I nodded, thinking of Quinn's fury in mediation. "What's our next move?" "We keep documenting," Nadia said. "Every transaction, every communication. We'll need it when—" My phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line made my stomach tighten. "Notice of motion filed. Matthews divorce proceedings." Nadia read it over my shoulder. Quinn's attorney was moving to classify the inheritance as marital property, claiming it derived from relationships and business connections developed during the marriage. "Right on schedule," Nadia murmured, already reaching for her legal pad. "They're asking for an emergency hearing. Looks like Quinn's done playing nice." The courthouse air conditioning hummed overhead as Judge Gutierrez adjusted her reading glasses, reviewing Quinn's motion with the measured pace I'd come to appreciate. Morning light filtered through tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. My hands stayed steady in my lap, but my collar felt tight. "Ms. Price, Judge Gutierrez said, looking up at Nadia. Please proceed with your response. Nadia rose smoothly, her burgundy suit jacket catching the light. Your Honor, we've prepared comprehensive tracing documents showing the inheritance funds have remained completely separate. She approached with a bound folder. The trust account was established immediately following Mr. Matthews receiving notice of his inheritance. Not a single dollar has touched marital accounts. I watched Quinn shift in her seat as Nadia walked the judge through our documentation. The familiar scent of courthouse coffee and paper files brought me back to signing the original divorce papers. Same building, different battle. Judge Gutierrez studied each page carefully before setting down her glasses. The law on inheritance is clear. Absent commingling, inherited assets remain separate property. She fixed Quinn's attorney with a stern look. Counsel, your client's motion is denied. The inheritance stays with Mr. Matthews. Quinn's glare burned across the courtroom, but I kept my eyes forward. The victory felt clean, earned through paperwork rather than drama, just how Uncle Lionel would have handled it. Later that evening, I drove out to Lionel's warehouse. The sunset painted the metal siding orange, just like it used to when I'd visit him after work. Inside, the familiar smell of machine oil and concrete wrapped around me. My footsteps echoed as I walked to his old office, now mine. The desk calendar still showed the month he died. I hadn't changed it yet. Opening the top drawer, I found his neat stacks of inventory sheets, each one marked in his precise handwriting. A lump formed in my throat as I remembered him teaching me his filing system. Everything in its place, kid. That's how you keep your life straight. My phone buzzed. Nadia calling. Good result today, she said, when I answered. Thanks to your prep work, I replied, settling into Lionel's chair. The leather creaked just like it always had. Don't relax too much, she cautioned. Quinn's attorney looked ready for round 2. Keep everything documented, every penny tracked. Always do. I glanced at Lionel's old ledgers. Learned from the best. The warehouse felt different as I locked up. Heavier somehow, with both responsibility and purpose. The drive home took me past the diner where Lionel and I used to grab breakfast before inventory days. Those mornings taught me more than just business. My porch light was on when I pulled in, casting a yellow circle on the concrete. Something white caught my eye. An envelope propped against my front door. No return address, just my name in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a single page. What looked like a screenshot of my business account, showing balances I knew weren't real. Numbers had been added, digits changed. Across the bottom in harsh black ink, see you in court. I stood there holding the paper, feeling the evening breeze pick up. The porch light hummed above me, drawing moths in lazy circles, while I studied the forged numbers that Quinn thought would break me. The next morning I barely tasted my coffee as I drove to Nadia's office, the forged screenshot burning a hole in my jacket pocket. The early morning traffic crawled along while my mind raced ahead, already mapping out strategies. You learn in the HVAC business that every problem has a solution. You just have to find the right approach. Nadia's receptionist hadn't even settled in yet when I arrived, but Nadia was already at her desk, reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed documents. She looked up as I entered, noting my expression. This showed up on my porch last night, I said, pulling out the paper and laying it on her desk. The harsh office lighting made the doctored numbers stand out even more clearly. Nadia picked up the page, studying it with narrowed eyes. Her finger traced along the account numbers, stopping at specific points. These digits don't align properly, she murmured, and the font's inconsistent in the balance column. She looked up at me. We'll subpoena the bank metadata. Every transaction leaves a digital fingerprint. Before she could say more, my phone buzzed. Then again, and again. Text notifications started flooding in from my crew leads. My stomach dropped as I opened the first message. Boss, payroll bounced. Bank says accounts are frozen. I stared at Nadia. What's happening? She was already typing on her computer. Quinn filed an emergency motion this morning, claiming evidence of hidden assets. Judge Gutierrez granted a temporary freeze. Her jaw tightened. It's a dirty trick, but effective. They're trying to force a settlement by threatening your business operations. The next few days blurred together. I spent hours in my garage office, taking calls from worried employees, promising them we'd sort this out. The familiar smell of motor oil and metal should have been comforting, but now it just reminded me of payroll I couldn't process. My crew deserved better than this. "Just hang in there," I told Miguel, one of my best technicians. "I've got proof this is wrong. We'll have it fixed soon." But I could hear the worry in his voice. He had kids to feed. Around midnight on the third night, I was reviewing security logs, something I'd started doing regularly since Quinn moved out. The cursor blinked as I scrolled through connection attempts to my home network. Then I stopped. There it was, a login at 1:13 a.m. from an IP address I recognized. Quinn's new apartment complex. My hands were steady as I pulled up the access logs for my cloud drive where I kept business documents. Same timestamp, same IP address. She'd logged in to get the original screenshot before doctoring it. The security camera in the corner of my garage office blinked its steady red light as I held the forged printout. The paper trembled slightly in my grip, not from fear but from the pure satisfaction of catching her red-handed. "Got you," I whispered, watching that red light blink. The camera caught every word, every timestamp, every piece of evidence we'd need. She thought she was so clever, breaking into my files to create her forgery. But she forgot one thing. In my line of work, you learn to document everything. Every service call, every part replacement, every system check, and apparently every betrayal too. The deposition room felt smaller than it was, all beige walls and recycled air. I sat next to Nadia, watching Quinn sweep in with her attorney like she was entering a dinner party rather than a legal proceeding. The court reporter adjusted her equipment while Quinn smoothed her blouse, that familiar smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. The smell of coffee from someone's paper cup reminded me of mornings at our kitchen table, back when I thought promises meant something. Amazing how memories can turn bitter so fast. Nadia waited for everyone to settle, then pulled out a manila folder with deliberate precision. "Ms. Matthews," she began, sliding the screenshot across the table. "Do you recognize this document?" Quinn barely glanced at it. "That's not mine." "Interesting." Nadia's voice was calm as spring water. "Because this photo was taken in your kitchen, note the distinctive granite pattern in the background." She placed another document beside the first. "This is the metadata from the image file. The timestamp matches a login to Mr. Matthews's business folder from your apartment's IP address at 1:13 a.m. on May 15th. Quinn's fingers twitched against her water glass. Her attorney leaned forward, whispering something in her ear. "And this," Nadia continued, laying down a third document, "is the bank's authentication trail, showing this is a composite image. The account numbers don't align because they were pieced together from different statements. You didn't just find evidence of hidden assets. You manufactured it." The smirk had vanished from Quinn's face. She stared at the papers like they might bite her. I met her eyes across the table. "You wanted freedom," I said quietly. "Here it is." She didn't respond. The only sound was the soft whir of the court reporter's machine. A week later, we gathered in Judge Gutierrez's courtroom for the sanctions hearing. The morning light slanted through tall windows, casting long shadows across the wooden benches. Quinn sat with her attorney in the front row, her shoulders rigid. Judge Gutierrez reviewed the evidence methodically, her reading glasses perched low on her nose. When she looked up, her expression was granite. "The court finds clear and convincing evidence of attempted fraud," she announced. "The temporary freeze on Mr. Matthews's accounts is hereby lifted. Ms. Matthews is sanctioned for submitting falsified documents and ordered to pay Mr. Matthews's attorney fees related to this matter." She paused, adjusting her glasses. "Furthermore, given the serious nature of document forgery, I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for review." Quinn's face went pale. Her attorney scribbled furiously on a legal pad. As we gathered our things, Nadia touched my arm lightly. "This is far from over," she murmured. "But she's crumbling." We walked toward the heavy wooden doors, our footsteps echoing in the marble hallway. I heard quick steps behind us. "Nelson." Quinn's voice was barely above a whisper. I turned to find her standing too close, her perfume sharp and familiar. "You'll regret this." I didn't say a word, just turned and walked away, letting the sound of my boots on marble answer for me. The morning of the final hearing, My hands moved on autopilot, organizing evidence binders in Nadia's conference room. Each tab told its own story: bank records, forged documents, metadata trails, and sanctions orders. The familiar scent of coffee and copy paper filled the air, reminding me of early mornings at Uncle Lionel's shop, sorting invoices while he taught me about precision. "Remember," Nadia said, reviewing our strategy one last time. "Judge Gutierrez has seen the whole picture: the separate inheritance, Quinn's forgery attempt, the dissipated funds from her extracurricular activities." She tapped the binder containing Quinn's credit card statements. "We just need to stay focused and let the evidence speak." I nodded, adjusting my tie. Like Uncle Lionel used to say, the truth doesn't need decoration. The courtroom felt different that morning. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, catching dust motes and golden beams. Quinn sat with her attorney, wearing a conservative navy dress that couldn't quite hide how her hands trembled. Judge Gutierrez entered, and we all rose. As she settled behind the bench, she pulled her reading glasses from their chain and began reviewing the final decree. "Having considered all evidence and arguments," she began, her voice clear and measured, "the court makes the following findings." She looked up, scanning the room. "The inheritance received by Mr. Matthews is confirmed as separate property, with no commingling. All business accounts are to be immediately restored without restriction." Quinn shifted in her seat. I kept my eyes forward. "Furthermore," Judge Gutierrez continued, "given the documented forgery attempt and resulting sanctions, along with evidence of marital funds dissipated through unauthorized personal expenses, the court enters a civil judgment against Ms. Matthews in the amount of $37,000. I heard Quinn's sharp intake of breath. "The divorce is hereby granted." Judge Gutierrez removed her glasses. "The marriage is dissolved, effective immediately. We are adjourned." The gavel crack echoed like a gunshot. Quinn's attorney whispered something to her, but she was already standing, her face flushed. I gathered my papers slowly, thanking Nadia with a quiet handshake. We walked toward the heavy courtroom doors, our footsteps echoing on marble. "Nelson, wait." Quinn's voice carried down the hallway. I turned to find her hurrying toward me, her heels clicking frantically. "Please, think about us." Her voice cracked. "Don't leave me with nothing." The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across her face. I met her eyes steadily. "You chose nothing," I said, my voice low and even. "You taught me promises were optional. I'm teaching you consequences aren't." She stared at me, mascara slightly smudged, like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. The man who would have softened at her tears was gone, replaced by someone who'd learned to value truth over comfort. "You don't have to be cruel," she whispered, her voice breaking. I turned and walked away, leaving her words to fade in the empty hallway. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I walked through our old house one last time. My footsteps echoed off bare walls where family photos used to hang. The late afternoon sun slanted through empty windows, catching dust motes dancing in rooms that held 7 years of memories. In the kitchen, I ran my hand along the granite countertop where Quinn used to prep Sunday dinners. The space felt smaller somehow, stripped of furniture and meaning. Remember those mornings? Coffee steam rising while bacon sizzled, Quinn humming some pop song as she scrolled through her phone. All those ordinary moments that seemed permanent until they weren't. The decision to sell came easier than I expected. These walls had witnessed the collapse of one life and the birth of another. Keeping them felt like clinging to a story that had already ended. My realtor found a young couple, newly married and full of plans. The irony wasn't lost on me. The sale closed quickly, adding a healthy sum to my accounts. Quinn's attorney made noise about claiming a portion, but Judge Gutierrez shut that down fast. "The property division is final," she'd said, peering over her glasses. "Your client has no claim to post-divorce assets." Another door closed in Quinn's face, another consequence of her choices. These days I spend my evenings in my new place, sitting under the brass desk lamp that used to illuminate Uncle Lionel's shop office. Its warm glow falls across investment statements and business reports while I plot my path forward. The inheritance sits untouched in its trust, growing steadily. Sometimes I catch myself smiling at the stability of it all. No drama, no lies, Just clean numbers marching across clean pages. Quinn's life took a different turn. She rents a one-bedroom apartment near the freeway now, the kind where moving trucks come and go like seasons changing. Through mutual friends, I heard she picked up extra bartending shifts to cover the sanctions and judgment payments. The smirk she wore during mediation is long gone, replaced by dark circles under her eyes and a tightness around her mouth. We cross paths occasionally. This town isn't big enough to avoid it completely. At the grocery store last week, we exchanged brief nods between the produce and dairy section. Her cart was half empty, her work uniform wrinkled. Our words were few and mechanical. Nelson. Quinn. The payment will be on time this month. Good. That was all. No barbs, no pleas. Just the quiet acceptance of how things are now. She looked tired, smaller somehow, like reality had finally settled its full weight on her shoulders. People ask me what justice feels like, expecting some dramatic answer. But real justice isn't about fireworks or revenge scenes from movies. It's seeing truth laid out in black and white on court documents. It's watching a judge calmly say no to a lie. Most of all, it's the quiet certainty that when someone tries to steal your life through betrayal, manipulation, or fraud, you can take it back. Not in one explosive moment, but piece by piece, methodically and permanently. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.